Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. This week on the show, Jon Randall, CEO of XFA.Coach, is with me for an innovative conversation about growing your financial advisory business. Now, most of our conversation is going to be tailored for businesses that are doing over $1 million a year in revenue. But there's a ton of value here for solo advisors and small teams that are still working their way up to that $1 million mark. So grab a beverage and stay tuned for this one. You're absolutely going to love it. Now, before we get to the conversation with Jon, please make sure you take a moment to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, the YouTubes, or wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest, hit me up. I'm basically at Mike Langford everywhere on the internet, or you can just shoot us an email, podcast@finservmarketing.com. All right, let's get to the conversation with Jon Randall. Well, Jon Randall from XFA.Coach, welcome to the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. So wonderful to see you, buddy.
Thank you, Mike. It's awesome to be on your great podcast.
Well, thank you. Well, it's very flattering of you to say this podcast is great. I think it's great. I'm glad you think it's great. So you and I have actually done a show before. You were on the Advisor Financing Forum podcast, which we produce for Skyview Partners with Aaron Hassler. And he introduced us a long time ago, and I'm like, I love this dude. I want to have him on another show. So I just reached out like, let's get you on the show. So for those of you, in the audience who don't know who Jon is, I thought we'll just do the traditional, let's kick something off with an elevator pitch, which is one of my favorite things to do. So let's hear it. Let's get an elevator pitch for XFA.Coach, which is also the website. And let's hear about a little bit about like what you and your team do for financial advisors and firms, and what sets XFA apart from other coaching providers that serve the same market.
Absolutely. So XFA stands for Extraordinary Financial Advisors. And like you said, XFA.Coach is our very easy to find website. We solely focus on helping financial advisors grow their business, period. We specialize in growth and profitability. We don't get into operations and all those other things. It's just how to grow the business. Now, the people we work with are doing over $1 million in revenue. Our average practice we work with is doing over $5 million in revenue. So it gets more difficult to grow the larger you are, right? When you're under $1 million, It's more about acquiring clients and better clients to get to $1 million. Then when you're over $1 million, it becomes about other people on your team, and it's a whole nother game. So how to overcome the common constraints, how to really get to the other side of those and really grow and scale the business beyond the owner. That's what we help these large practices do.
Absolutely love it. And I'm looking forward to diving in deeper on this, and I'm glad you made that distinction there, because a lot of coaches and consultancies that work with advisors, and there are a bunch out there, they work on a variety of different things. And I'm glad you really made the distinction. Like, hey, listen, we're not all about practice management necessarily. I'm sure occasionally part of growth is understanding there are some practice management principles that should be at work here to improve your business and so forth. But focusing on helping an advisor grow the business. And frankly, dude, there's a huge need for this. You and I talked about this offline. I'm due to have him back on the show again, but Kieran Bowl, who's from a company called Price Metrics by McKinsey, and they do this annual state of the wealth management industry study, right? It's McKinsey's type study, right? And one of the things they found in one of their more recent ones is that for like well over a decade, almost all growth for financial advisors was due to market growth, right?
Yeah.
And none of them were growing organically. And this has been backed up by a couple of other studies recently as well, where it's very anemic in this industry. Because I think I understand this, and you could tell me why. I think I understand some of the reasons why, but I always say, look, it's really easy to get a little fat and lazy, right? Like you get your business to a certain point and you're like, all right, I'm making good revenue. I'm playing a crap ton of golf or a lot of music, drums they have in the background, guitar in the background here. I'm doing a lot of fun stuff. It's easy to kind of get complacent, right? Let's get into those common constraints you mentioned. Right? So,
yeah, I think there are some that do get complacent. I also see too, there's some that want to grow, but they just don't know how.
Right.
And it's a lot of times that it's the things that got them here to where they are not the things that are going to get them there to
Yeah.
double, triple, 10x from where they are today. So I see tons of practices that come to us are stuck like, oh my gosh, I've been stuck at whatever 2.2 million for the last 4 years. And it's like, well, the market's been up, like, right? What's the
Yeah.
problem? And there are some studies that go a little deeper, like I always we always buy the investment news. It's basically profitability and their compensation study combined now, and it reveals the same thing every year. They said advisor practices are filled up with too many clients. It is
Yeah.
the number one constraint that we see in practices. They just have too many clients, and it's a byproduct of doing a good job, right? If you do a good
Yeah.
job, people flock to you, and but they just get caught up with too many clients, and it creates this crossroads of where they need to go in the business, and they're not sure. They either need to be a boutique business or they need to scale the business. So you look at all the 8-figure producers
Yeah.
out there, they're really one of these divergences. They either work with really high end clients and less of them. So they're constantly shedding the bottom, they're constantly moving up market, and they're always doing more for their top tier of clients. And they end up just working with their top tier. They're very profitable, they're
Yeah.
very small, but that's a different model. The scale model is okay, there's probably only so much production each advisor can handle. There's only so many clients each advisor
Yeah.
can handle. So we need more advisors. They handle more people. We need to scale this out. And even if you look at Barron's top 100, even the top 10 of Barron's, we work with some people there, it's really one of those two models
Yeah.
that it really is. So people kind of get stuck in between. A lot of times it's all about the owner. It's not really about the team or other advisors on the team. And there's just a sound barrier to how much they can do, what they can grow to. And it's a different game to grow to the next level. And I think that's what prevents the people that want to grow, that aren't
Sure.
complacent, the ones that want to grow. That's the constraint. That's what's holding it back.
Well, that is such an easy thing to understand when you say it the way you just articulate it, which was fantastic. It's a capacity issue, right? It's, hey, look, there's only so many hours in the day, right? If you want to operate a business and serve your clients well, right? You as an individual can only do so much, right? It's just, look, I produce podcasts and videos for wealth management and fintech companies. There's only so many I can host. There's only so much stuff Mike Langford can do. I need to scale myself by what? Bringing on other team members, by having other people do editing, by having other people do some of the production quality stuff that we do, by having other people host shows. It can't just be Mike doing it all. Otherwise, it's just, there will be a ceiling that we bang up against, right? And you are 100% right. I've spent a lot of time in this industry, and the advisors who have the biggest business that I've seen, at some point in time, you'll notice they're not spending all their time with clients, right? They're elevating themselves to kind of like CEO level. They do, yes, of course, still have some white glove stuff that they do with their top clients, but they've now brought in other advisors on the team, other service personnel, and so forth. So that constraint issue is time constraint, if you will, or just capacity concept is absolutely there. But let's dive into some of the other common constraints that you say are holding advisors back. I mean, during our prep call, you touched on something that, you know, really resonated with me. You said that there's common constraints that are holding advisors back, but you said that the commonalities seem to happen at certain revenue tiers, right? That for one tier, this is the common stuff, and for another tier, this is the common stuff. And I really hadn't thought about it that way, but I'm like, yeah, man, we should dive in and break that down, because it really does make sense that, actually you said it when you're teeing things off earlier, like the stuff that got you here isn't necessarily going to get you to the next level. And I think that's probably the way it is. And you get to this new level and you're like, guess what? In order to get to that level, it's going to be something new. So let's talk about it. What are these tiers, and what are some of the kind of the high level constraints for each tier?
Yeah, you usually at 1 million to 2 million in revenue.
Yeah.
That's where you see a lot of it's all about the owner or the founder of the business. They're the face to the clients. They're doing most of the work. And there's just only so much they can do. They may have surrounded themselves with other who's on their team, other people to help, but they really haven't transitioned to making it about other advisors on their team who will be the front people. When you get into multiple millions, these practices have kind of crossed over to that level where, okay, now it's about other advisors, but then it's not the client constraint capacity. Then there's a leadership constraint capacity because they
Interesting.
all say the same thing. My advisors aren't proficient. I'm just dumping clients on them and they can't do stuff, right? They can't sell stuff. They can't position things with clients. They're not getting the rollovers. They're not getting any referrals. They're just kind of sitting there on revenue, and some of them go backwards. So it is interesting that those are probably the two most common ones that we see is the owner having too many clients on their plate. As you get to that 2 million to 10 million range, it's advisors. It's having enough advisors on the team who are proficient
Yeah.
to service clients. That becomes the constraint there. When you get over 10 million, they've kind of got that figured out. They've crossed that sum. It's still a conundrum. I find then it's more about, well, what does the structure of the business need to be? How do you build a moat around these clients so they don't take them, or
Yeah.
advisors on your team don't take clients and go to another firm or go somewhere else? There's a lot of dynamics there as you get bigger, even into multiple millions, but certainly with the 8-figure practices we work with, it's complex, but they've overcome some of these things. They just have a whole new set of problems that they didn't even fathom when they were at 1 million or 2 million. And so I think that's what happens at each stage. It's just they don't even know the problems that they're going to face and they're going to come into. But they're really common. I mean, we've got a whole progression or workflow that we take our advisors through, that our coaches are highly trained in,
Yeah.
that goes through the common constraints from the beginning. And so a common one like advisor capacity, it's right at the beginning because it's the most common one. Even some larger firms have that. They realize, oh my gosh, I've got 150 clients on my plate. I should probably have 30.
Yeah.
If I am going to be the true leader of this firm, or if I am going to focus on mergers and acquisitions to grow our firm, it takes a lot of time to do that
Yeah.
stuff. Can't be a full-time advisor and do those things. And we work with people that don't work with any clients. We work with the Barron's number 8 practice, and they haven't seen a client in 13 years. They
Yeah.
haven't been in a meeting. That's pretty neat. I mean, they are a true CEO. I mean, they're almost like founder. And at that level, you can bring in a CEO to run the business, right? You
Yeah.
can be a true owner, a true entrepreneur. It's a whole nother level at that game. But really, at that level, it's all about leadership
Yeah.
and the culture of the people, and how can we cultivate people to want to be here and stay here, and how can we attract more talent to help more clients. It's just that amplified. It really is. But you dig down in there and it's okay, what's the right structure?
Yeah.
How do we build advisors around the clients? How do we help them be proficient in a small number of things so they can create tons of value for clients that they want to stay, they want to refer others, make it easy for the advisors? That's really the tough part. It really gets tough there, but that's some of the more common ones that exist. And we find that practices struggle to see it.
Yeah.
They really can't identify their constraint and what's really holding them back. And sometimes we have to use like an analogy and help them look at another business or another idiom just to see that, oh, I was working on this and this other part is my constraint. I didn't even see it.
That's it's so interesting you say it, and it makes so much sense to me. And I think when you explain it to any human being, they'll get it. But when you're in it, it sometimes is way more difficult to see when it's like when you're doing it, and it's your business because most advisors got their start and they're a solo person. They got their start. If they've been in the business for a long time, they got their start as a stockbroker. They were a salesperson. They went out and developed a book and built that. And if they came in, even if they came in later and when they were called financial advisors, okay, you're going to go out and advise on clients. But as the business grows, you hit that constraint. If you want it to become more than just you're hiring people, but you don't know about hiring people and managing a staff. And at first you're managing a staff. And then before, as you mentioned, you're getting into leadership. Like now I have a real organization. We have billions of dollars of AUM that we are stewarding here. That changes the way that you go. And it's, one of the other hard things, and this is why a coach I think is so important, is the skill set that is necessary. It's not even just the knowledge. It's like, look, I mean, the skill set necessary to lead a company is not the same skill set necessary for managing client portfolios and relationships,
Yes.
right?
It's
It's
so
just
true.
not the same thing.
Yeah, and no one ever taught us that stuff. I started as an advisor
Yeah,
25 years ago, right around the time of this recording. No one ever taught us
yeah,
leadership skills, entrepreneurial skills. It was just how to help people, right? How to help clients as a financial advisor. That's the skills we learned. And that's part of the challenge. We're thrown into a whole new game of we need to be
yeah,
an entrepreneur. We need to be a leader of other people, or we need to hire. We need a
yeah,
who, right? We need to bring in people who are really good at that and let them run it and you be a true owner. But that's the difficult part is it requires different skills at these different levels that no one ever showed us. So
yeah,
anyone can get up to, we find about 1.5 million is like the individual advisor kind of sound barrier of just what they're able
yeah.
to do, maybe with some support people, but
Sure.
on their own without another client facing advisor on the team. It's kind of their sound barrier.
Yeah,
And really, when you get into other advisors on the team, immediately it's about leadership. How are we developing them? How are we helping them get what they want for themselves? No one ever taught us that.
yeah.
It's a different game.
Well, it's funny. It's like this is no different than any other business, right? And I've already talked, use a parallel for me and what we do here. But if you think about like, go back to Bill Gates, right? And Paul Allen when they're founding Microsoft, right? A couple of nerds coding stuff, right? And then, and then, at some point in time, like, hey, we got to get somebody to buy this thing that we're coding, and they go out and do it. But then they realize like they don't have the product they need. They go out and they acquire the product, which turned out to be MS DOS, right? They buy it effectively from somebody else. But very quickly, as they start to grow, Bill Gates, of course, stops being a coder, right? I mean, I'm sure he coded some of the, but like you can't grow the business to be this multi-billion-dollar operation where the founder and CEO is still like the head coding dude, right? At some point in time, he's going to have to let go of some of that and start working on other strategic things and managing people and very often like the CEO of a company's chief job is being the chief visionary of the company, if you will, the strategist for the company, and they're recruiting in talent and so forth, and they're very little to do with the day-to-day operations of the company.
Yes.
And I think that's true for our industry as well. I mean, albeit on a smaller scale, most
Yeah,
advisory
sure.
firms,
Right.
I always tell people who aren't in this industry, it's like, listen, man, like even the really big RIAs are small companies. I mean,
Yeah.
they very rarely do they have more than 100 employees. That's a tiny company when you
Yes.
think about it, right? It's
Yeah.
a really small operation in the in the scale when we're talking about the context of company sizes. Let's dive into something you said recently. Shift gears a little bit here. By the way, for those who are listening and or watching along, John is very active on LinkedIn and other places. And so you and your team post little short videos, which I think are fantastic, by the way. So keep it up. I love the stuff you guys are putting out. A couple of weeks ago, you published a short video on LinkedIn. That's where I saw it, in which you encourage your advisors to look within their business to find growth opportunities. And I was like, that's a really smart recommendation. I like that because too often we are external. We're all looking about where's the next client coming from, right? Where's the next deal, right? But you might actually have the next deal sitting right in front of you, as you mentioned in the video. And more specifically, you said client optimization is the shortest path to growth. And I'm like, I need to get some more context on this. So let's unpack that concept of client optimization for the audience because I think it's really brilliant.
Yeah. I've yet to find the practice that has fully optimized everything and is really capturing all the revenue they can from who they're working with. And it's to me, it's a byproduct of just growing and
Yeah,
getting bigger. It's hard to have the time to really dig in there and
yeah,
help every client with everything. So what really the opportunities are from within is number one, making sure that we're properly segmented. A
mm,
lot of practices have way too many clients they should not be working with. They
okay,
really do. There's some studies I've gotten from some other firms, some studies from the Oxley Institute. They did a study around the fastest growing practices versus average practices. So the average practices, which you're saying haven't really grown a lot, they've kind of grown with the market. They've got too many clients. On average, they have about 3.5 segments of clients, so between 3 and 4. The very top, fastest growing practices only have 2.1 segments. So guess what? They're just working with the top half, right? They're
Yeah.
just working with the better segments and they're not wasting any time with the bottom ones. And some stats we found, the bottom half, 50% of clients are typically producing low single digit percentage of their total revenue. How much
Interesting.
time is wasted there? And if we reinvested that time to doing a little bit more for the top 10% of clients, imagine how much more we could do for them, how much
Sure.
revenue they're capable of producing. Maybe we get referrals from these people, that's a whole nother thing. But just to do more with the best people and go deeper, there's so much revenue right there. And even larger 8-figure firms that we worked with, they've typically acquired a lot. Some of
Yeah.
them have grown truly organically, but it's rarer. Most of them have grown through acquisition and other advisors
Yeah.
joining their team and the firm buying out people. That's a lot of the growth that goes on in all the spaces, RAs, large
Yeah.
independent broker dealers where we work. But really, as that happens, usually an advisor that's selling, look, they're great people, there's nothing wrong with them, but they're kind of on the exit ramp from the highway,
Yeah.
right? They're not really doing everything they could. So when you get a bunch of these together and you get a bunch of advisors that aren't proficient at capturing everything they could, there's low what I call asset velocity, which is the amount of revenue you produce based on the assets you manage. The industry average is over 1% is actually produced on the amount of assets managed. And we come across so many practices that are just way lower. And they're not lower because their assets grew really quickly and their
Sure.
revenue is still catching up. They're lower because they just have all this stuff that they're sitting on. Their advisors are overwhelmed. There's too
Yeah.
many clients. They're not able to go deeper and capture the revenue. So yeah, it's shiny and sexy to go get the new, acquisition, which I am a fan of. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the business. But once you do get that acquisition, you've got to go back to the beginning and look at, okay, what is advisor capacity? What should the segmentation be? What are the opportunities with these clients where we could help them more and go deeper and generate, it's good for them, the things we
Yeah.
help them with, and it generates more revenue. So many practices could be generating literally millions more with what's just sitting there. And what's so cool is it will mostly go to profits,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you give some incentives to people to drive some of this growth, but that's going to be a really small percentage of the profits that can be generated with just sitting right in front of us. So again, another, we after advisor capacity, we tend to go there because why not grab
Yeah.
that? If we need to hire more who's or a really awesome, CEO to run your business, well, that's how we pay for it. Might
Yeah.
not be in the budget now, but let's create it. Let's create the profits to pay for the next people you need to really take the business to the next level.
I'm so glad you talked about that because, and we could talk a little bit about like, what do you mean by segments versus, somebody else might mean by segments. But like, one of the things I always talk about with advisors is, look, you're looking to increase, clients, new client acquisition. You're looking to reduce attrition, right? You want to, don't want to lose clients, but you also want to increase share of wallet, right? It's really important. You've got existing business right here. Very few clients have 100% of their investable assets with an advisor. It's just the way the world works, right? And so you have the opportunity, as you said, to, if you work with your existing clients, to add assets without having to add clients, right? And the cost of new client acquisition, not only in just time and money is there, but it takes time to on-ramp that client as well. So we already have people in the building or in the client roster, if you will, that should get focused. When you say segment, are you talking about clients by size, or are you talking about other types of segments? Because I'm thinking about the niches as an example. Like there might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
clients.
So just looking at clients, I think of niches and targets more for acquiring to
Sure.
really have, hey, this is the type of person we help best. We should do more here with these type of people to get more. Segments more with existing clients is
Yeah.
really the level of client, and really recurring revenue is usually best
Yeah.
because assets, you might have clients that have a lot of assets that don't produce a lot of revenue. It's probably not your best client. The
Sure.
clients that produce the most revenue, recurring, ongoing, that's the most valuable thing in this
Yeah.
business. So really having your team and your time aligned with the allocation of revenue. So there should be a complete correlation
Yeah.
there that whoever's producing the most, that's who should get the most time. Whoever's not producing a lot, they should not get a lot. So that's a big conundrum for
Yeah.
practices. And when they can crack that code and figure that out, oh my gosh, then they have the
Yeah.
capacity to go deeper with those better clients. And if they did have a niche, I mean, that's a whole nother level to say, hey, we help. I've got some advisors focus on people that own specific kind of businesses or
Yeah.
people that are executives of a certain company or maybe a certain industry.
Right.
And you go deeper there and help those specific clients more. Guess what? They're going to love it. And they're
Yeah.
going to tell other people about it, which is how most clients are meeting their advisor, especially affluent clients.
For
You
sure.
look at the ultra high net worth, 10 million plus to, probably 100 million, couple 100 million. Those clients definitely, what you said, Mike, their assets are with multiple advisors. They are. But can
100%.
you really wow them and do a better job than everyone else to capture that? Heck yeah, you can. You
Yeah.
absolutely can get it all and generate more revenue with that client, but you got to bring it. You've got to do way more than you are. And I always say, if you think you're doing enough for your best people, think again. There's
Yeah.
always more we could be doing there.
I love that. And one of the things you sort of touched on, but I think bears like more emphasis is, look, the more commonality you can have in your client from one client to the other, oftentimes the better and more efficient your business gets at serving the client, right? Because look, if I've got a niche, certain type of business owner, or at least a segment, like, hey, all of my clients have X amount of millions of dollars or more, or they all have, some other attributes that are somewhat common. Guess what? Now I can develop more, like you talked about in your business. Heck, just at XFA, you have a certain type of target of like, this is what we do. We help advisors grow their business. And we're looking to work with advisors who are at this stage of the business or above. Really helps, right? You develop
It
all your
does. And look,
programs.
I've floundered working with all kinds of advisors on a
Sure.
million things. Oh, I can do everything under the sun for
Yep.
you, which we know about all that stuff. Cause I mean, I was an advisor, I did
Yeah.
this, but to really hone in and narrow down on, you know what, we help independent advisors that own their business, that are producing over a million, who really want to grow and scale their business. Yeah, that's who we help best, because we just learned it over time and we're only just going to work with those people. We can't help everyone. We'll
Sure.
refer them. I know a lot of other consultants will refer them to someone who's more appropriate and can help. But if practices did that too,
Yeah.
I mean, that just comes a whole nother level. I mean, then it
Yeah.
gets really easy to find the next client and to really grow with them and specialize. It's nice to
Yeah.
work with a lot of clients that are similar. You can really be a true expert in that than trying to be a jack of all
Yeah.
trades and help all these different clients with all these different things. More sophisticated clients, they require more, right?
Yeah.
More time, more energy, more knowledge. And if you have a whole bunch of different ones, it's hard. And
Yeah.
it's hard for your advisors and your team to
Yeah.
learn how to help those people. But if there's some similarities, they can learn a heck of a lot quicker and be really, really good.
It's You're gonna have to do the work anyways to service a client, as you said, right? You talked about like, you look at the segmentation for the average advisory firm that comes in, and you're like, wow, you guys are working on clients that are very unprofitable. When I used to work at Fidelity Investments back in the day, we had a client segment that was called 10th decile, right? Meaning these were the bottom 10% profitable people to Fidelity Investments. Doesn't mean we didn't care about those people. Didn't mean that they didn't deserve some form of customer service. However, they were not going to get the same level of customer service as the higher end clients. And so this is back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, when the internet was really taking off. So if somebody called the phone queue, and by the way, the average cost per call for Fidelity Investments at that time was $14 per call, right? You just add up the cost of the phone operations by the number of calls that come into the phone call operations, and it costs $14 every time somebody called 1-800, whatever Fidelity's number was at the time. So you don't want people who don't even generate $14 of revenue in a year to be calling the phone number, right? You want to ideally save that attention span for high quality people. So if you were a 10th decile person, you called, you entered your account number or social, whatever, you would be encouraged to go to fidelity.com. You can get a lot of your answers at fidelity.com, and you would be on hold longer. This was not Fidelity trying to be mean. They were like, hey, there's probably some self-service options for you. This way cheaper channel if you visit digital. And I might get some hate mail from Fidelity, but that was 20 something years ago. So whatever.
But it's so helpful, Mike, for I think the independent advisor to learn from that. Because
Yeah,
Fidelity is a pretty awesome company,
right.
right? They got really, really smart people that have figured out a great business and a really great company. We can learn from that. They can't help everyone the same way. And it's not that they're bad people, or it's not
Right.
that you're a bad person as an advisor because you don't want to help them. I'm not saying you got to kick them to the curb. If they're going to be part of your practice, they just got to be serviced differently. And
Sure.
look at all these big firms. I mean, they have, I even see it in large independents. They've developed basically their own call center
Yeah.
where they're giving personal service to the upper end clients, and they have more of a call center kind of service approach for those smaller clients
Yeah.
because they don't, a lot of practice, because they're smaller, they don't really know their cost per client, their profitability per client, because they're busy, because probably
Yeah.
they have too many clients. But to really know those metrics, I mean, when you have like, a whole CFO department that's analyzing this, I mean, that's how these,
Yeah.
Vanguard, Philly, these really large companies have really dialed it in and figured it out. But we can learn from that. The big wirehouses, Merrill, Morgan, UBS, they don't compensate their advisors for clients under 500,000 in assets because they know their cost and profit point. And they know that those
Yeah.
clients are probably better served at like Merrill Edge, for example, their call center, because that's a model that's better
Yeah.
able to help those kind of clients. They know that, okay, at this level client above, the typical revenue is profitable for our business. So I've had some practices dig in. They found that it's about 2,500 bucks is their cost per client. Now that's just cost.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
if you're not generating 2,500, you're losing money. And I always say, hey, we could take a pile of money and light it on fire in the parking lot a heck of a lot more efficiently than you are working with all these clients that wasted so
Yeah.
much time. But when you get above that, it's like, okay, we start to become profitable. That profitability study that Investment News puts out, they determine that it's around 47% is the average profit margin, which includes like owner or partner compensation. It's the average profit margin for an independent business, independent financial advisor business. So let's just do quick math, round that up. Let's say it's a 50% profit margin. Okay, if our cost is 2,500 and we got 50% cost, 50% profit margin, guess what? We need about 5,000 in revenue per client to have that. Well, if you're getting 1%, that's right around 500,000.
Yeah.
Like, these big firms are really, really smart. They've
Yeah.
really figured out their profit point. And that's a lot of times what we have to do is practices. And it's not that they're bad people under that
No.
point or you have to kick them to the curb. They just have to be serviced differently. And I see a lot of practice saying we're going to have a separate department that does these. I've got practices that are hiring people from call centers to work these clients because they're used to that. They're used to it being all over the phone. It's kind of a different service model, and they're protecting their advisors that are going to work with the larger clients, the 7-figure plus clients. They're going to be more proficient at those larger cases, those larger clients. So the mistake so
Yeah.
many advisors make is they dump their small clients on the next advisor in their team, and they're going to be in purgatory, both of them, the business and the advisor, because that advisor will never be profitable for the firm. It's going to be difficult for them to grow because they got all small clients. They really need to have decent level clients.
Yeah.
And until an advisor is producing about 500,000 on your team, and I'm talking about 500,000 of what you own as an owner, you're having other advisors work this business for
Yeah.
you. That's kind of the break even point. We
Yeah.
try and push practices that your advisors should be producing 1 million each. They should be managing over 100 million in AUM at your firm. They're capable of it. They
Yeah.
really are. But if they have a bunch of garbage clients, not that they're not bad people,
No,
but
yeah,
if they
sure.
have clients that are too small, they're never going to get there. You've got to help them work with better clients.
Well, you see, look, this is I know some people, and I doubt anyone in our audience feels this way. Maybe they will. Maybe there's some pangs of guilt and whatever, because some of those smaller clients were their first clients or their family members
Of
or their whatever. So
course,
people
of
get
course.
that. But look, in every walk of life that we inhabit, we pay for white glove service differently than we pay for self-service or whatever, right? It's just you go to a hotel, you want more white glove service, you're going to stay at a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons or something of that
Yeah.
nature. If you're okay going down and just going to grab and go muffins at the at a business hotel, there's Hyatt places and so forth. And by the way, Hyatt places are great. I stay at Hyatt places and other, Marriott, whatever types stuff like. There's nothing wrong with those hotels. But I don't expect the same level of service. When I fly regular old coach flight, I don't expect the same service as when I pay for a first class flight, right?
So well said.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm a Marriott person. Fairfield Inn's totally different from the Ritz. And there's
sure
times
it
I'm
is.
like, hey, I just need the Fairfield Inn. I
Yeah,
just need a cheap room. They even have free breakfast. It's awesome. It's
that's right.
cheap. But if it's a special like occasion or
Yeah.
special family trip, hey, you know what? The Ritz Carlton, let's really, spend a lot, to get that
That
incredible
you are
experience
getting
we
more,
want.
and you
Yes.
don't throw a fit when you're at the Fairfield Inn or whatever it is. We're Hilton, so like whatever the lower level Hilton Garden Inn or something like that versus the flagship type Hilton. I'm not throwing a tantrum over that.
Different. It's
But
totally different business. Yeah. It's
in this,
owned by the same company,
yeah,
but it's a different model from within this large company. And
that's
that's
exactly
really where advisors need to decide what am I going to be?
right.
And
And you have to ask yourself, and this is where your work comes in. And I want to. This is a great segue into it because I want to understand like working with coaches, right? Like how you work with. I could have because I think there's probably some pain, like just when you're working, like as you're working with a personal trainer, as an example, you might have to go through some pain, right? Changing the way, working a little harder than you had to before, doing some things you didn't do before, eating differently than you did before. All those come with a little bit of pain, right? They just do. I think working with a coach like yourself and your team probably involves a little bit of that, right? That you're not just like a regular consultant where you're like, hey, we've analyzed the problem. Here's some recommendations for fixing the problem. Go ahead and fix it. You're like, no, no, no. We found the problem. We're going to work with you to solve the problem, get you to that growth there. I imagine many advisors go through some emotional challenges when it is because not every company is going to be able to have their version of Hilton Garden Inn versus the
yes,
flagship Hilton. They are going to have to let go of some clients.
they are, and it's hard, especially because a lot of advisors are good people,
Yeah.
and they're probably not like shrewd business person like Ebenezer Scrooge, right? They're like good. I mean, if you're
Yeah, I know what
working
you
with
mean. Yeah.
clients, like you're probably like working with people. They're
Yeah.
in the ones that hold on to exactly what you said. You nailed it. This was one of my first clients. They've been with me since the beginning. I like them so much. They're such nice people, and well, a good person would say that, and it's good that you're a good person. But the one that hit me between the eyes, because I had the same problem
Yeah.
when I was in my practice, the thing that hit me between the eyes was I'm actually hurting them by trying to
Mm.
work with them because I don't have the capacity to.
Yeah.
Somebody else that's better suited to help them, they're way better off with that. So whether it's in your practice, you have a different business model in somebody else, or if you're not going to build out, a service model or a call center for those clients, guess what? There's lots of other practices that do. And I have
Yeah.
so many that will partner with them, say, gosh, could we work something out here? Maybe not sell them, but maybe work out a revenue share on those
Sure.
clients to say, you know what? I just need somebody else to help these people because they're going to be better off. And once advisors get over that, they can. But you're right. There's so many of these things that advisors have to get out of their own way. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much what we do a lot of as coaches and consultants is just help them see the constraint, help them with the solutions and steps it takes to get there. But
Yeah.
that's where kind of the coaching comes in of, yeah, that's why I'm finishing up my PhD in psychology. it's
Yeah.
it's performance psychology, but there's a lot of that involved that we're just humans. We care about these other humans and we get in our own way. We're not going to make that leap to 10x your business or even double your business out there if you're doing the things you have been doing. We are so rooted in routines as
Yep.
humans. Our brain craves equilibrium. So we're naturally going to do things the way we have been. So that's why I always say the things that got us here may not get us there. So
Yeah.
the things that got us here, there are roots. And for some people, they're like an anchor for a big ship. And until we pull up that anchor, it's going to hold us in place. So we
Yeah.
really have to shift how we think, which is a little bit of the coaching part. The consulting is like the how to. We do a lot more of mentorship
Yeah.
and really is kind of a quicker path of both, where it's, hey, I used to think just like you. If you think this way, you can make this leap. And here's the steps and all the resources you need to do it. That's a big part of it. Now, it's not all just one-on-one coaching we have. Every week, all our people are together. So every Monday at 4 Eastern, down to whatever time that is Pacific, we have people in Alaska, Hawaii that are on.
Oh,
Every
wow.
week, same bat time, same bat channel, we're all together. And
Is
our
this people from
community of
your team or the
advisors
whole community of okay,
of
so I just want to make
XFA,
sure I'm
yeah,
correcting that. Yeah, yeah.
our whole community, we're all together. And they help each other out. So we have a lot of breakout rooms.
That's
Everyone
great.
gets to get together with their coach, but they're with other advisors. And guess what? They're getting way more from the other advisors than they are their coach. Their
Yeah.
coach knows what to do, but they're learning, oh my gosh, this person figured this out. Or somebody else helped somebody else because they got helped by somebody
Yeah.
else in the group. So it's really cool community that every week they're helping each other on top of the individual coaching to help them with those mental shifts and get out of their own way and implement the stuff that
Right.
actually works. It's really neat to see that they actually grow faster because of the group. They grow faster because someone in the group figures something out, or someone else in the group said, I used to be just
Yeah.
like you. And when I made this change, here's what happened. It's way faster change than, and way faster growth is
Yeah.
a byproduct than just on their own. And I didn't make this up. Performance psychology was discovered by a gentleman in the 1800s who noticed, when people ride bicycles in groups, they ride much faster opposed to when they're by themselves. And it's just how we are as humans.
Makes
And I
sense.
just find these financial advisors, they grow a lot faster when they're in these packs and groups. They grow way faster than when it's like individualized and on
Yeah.
their own. So we've been able to harness that and capture it, and they love it. They love it. We
I,
love it too. It's really fun.
I think that's really smart. I mean, it's I like that you talked about the biking because I was immediately my brain was going to fitness groups, right? Like that it's having an accountability partner, right? Lots of people are great self-motivated. There are some people who start running or cycling or lifting weights or whatever, and they don't need anybody around them. They're just going to get ripped or whatever all on their own. But there is a lot of evidence that, hey, having a gym buddy or a group of people that you go for, I see it as an example. My office, I'm at my home office here, and in the front of my house, I look at the street, and you see the same people walk by all the time. You know what I mean? There's like a common story. You always envision what's the story with this person. Well, there is a group of ladies, and these are older women who walk by, and this group has grown over the years, and I just love it. I'm like, yes, these ladies get up every morning
Awesome.
and they go
Yeah.
for a stroll around the neighborhood as a team of older ladies, and like they're keeping in shape, they're staying active. It's a social thing for them. I'm sure none of them want to let the other ladies down, so they all keep going. And it doesn't matter what the weather is. I mean, it's Texas, right? So summertime, it's super hot, so they're out earlier.
Yeah.
But I'll see them out in the winter, the rain, the whatever. I just absolutely love it.
They
And so I
stick
think
to
you're
it in the
right.
group, right? They're
Yeah,
going to do it. Even, bodybuilding, Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the most successful ever,
yeah,
youngest Mr. Universe ever, he always said, I always had a workout partner, always, because it was
yeah.
more intense. And I
That's right.
noticed that when I exercise on my own, it's a lot more intense when I have a trainer. They kick my butt.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Or somebody you want to show up. Like I was like, my son's home from college, right? And he's super skinny. He's like, 6 foot tall and 143 pounds or something like that. It's just tall, skinny kid. He wants to put some muscle on. Well, I've always, I like, I'm not huge, but I like to exercise and I've always been into fitness. And so like when I work out with my son, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to show up the punk kid, right? Like show him that
Yes.
dad can still throw the weights around a little bit more than you
Yes.
can, right? It's kind of fun. So I support 100% cosign. Hey, advisors working with XFA or wherever else, get with a group of folks. It'll absolutely help you out. we don't have much time left with each other, but I wanted to tackle something that I think is really interesting to me anyways, and maybe audience members will find is interesting is, you've mentioned it already. You were an advisor at some point in time in your career. And in fact, you were an advisor for like 18 years. So it wasn't like a scenario where you're like, yeah, I did the advisor thing for a year and it didn't stick. It stuck. What I'd love to understand is what was your decision matrix for you're like, hey, you know what? Coaching's where it's at for me. I want to be a performance psychologist. I want to go out and help other advisors. I don't want to manage practice because I think the reason why I asked this question, not only am I just genuinely interested, but I think a lot of people have that question in mind. Like, hey, if you were an advisor and you know all this, you're like super smart, John. Why don't you go build a multi-billion-dollar RIA and just like, live like a rock star that way, right? I'm sure that question comes up, but like, there's got to be something more to it because, obviously, if anybody who goes out and checks out your website, the company's very successful. You're working with some, rock star firm, so it's working. What was that nature of that switch, and then kind of what have you learned along the way?
Man, I stumbled into Mike. I had no idea would be doing this, but I got so lucky. So I started right out of college as a financial advisor. My dad had a buddy who was an advisor. I didn't really know what he did, but he seemed like he was really cool and he was doing
Yeah,
well. And I asked him like after school, after high school, a couple of days, could I just like, I don't know, get people coffee or shred papers or do
yeah,
something just to be around. And he was in meetings with people. I could hear him laughing. They were giving people hugs. I said, man, this is for me. Whatever this is, I'm super interested. I want to do what this person does.
yeah,
And so I went to college for it. My wife's from Long Island, New York. I wasn't from there. We met in college up in Massachusetts. And I said, gosh, what a great place to start in the industry. And so
yeah.
we moved to New York after college and spent 5 years there and loved it. Was around incredible people, learned so much so quickly being there. I was really, really fortunate. Well, my wife's brother was on a baseball scholarship in North Carolina during those same years. And we were traveling down to watch him play. And we just fell in love with North Carolina, the weather,
Yeah.
that real estate's really cheap. And we didn't have kids yet. So we decided to move. I was 5 years in the business and I picked up and moved and started over again.
Wow.
And when I moved, these people in North Carolina started to ask me, hey, what do those big producers do in New York? Would you show me? So I started to show them best practices like client optimization things. Well, I knew what worked and didn't work to acquire clients. So I grew really quick. It took me about probably a year and a half. It was less than 2 years to rebuild what it took my first 5 years in the
Yeah.
business. So all these other people said, whoa, how do you grow so fast? How did you acquire these clients so quickly? Would you show me?
Yeah.
So I started to show advisors how to attract new clients. And then it kind of just spread across the state. It spread across, the Southeast and then eventually all over the country, just helping advisors with how to grow. And as these practices got bigger and bigger, we just kind of evolved what we worked on. That okay,
Yeah.
used to work with people that are doing 500,000 and became 5 million, and I just fell in love with it. I gravitated towards helping advisors. I felt like the wins were quicker.
Yeah.
They really valued what I did, and so I just kind of got out of my practice more and more and more. And it was 7 years ago. It was 2017 that I sold the last bit of my practice
Oh,
and
wow.
just been doing this full time. And it's like building, in a way, it's like building a financial advisor practice where, I can't coach everyone, right? I coach
Yeah.
like less than 10% of the advisors we work with, but we've developed awesome advisors. And guess what? A
Yeah.
lot of them, most of them are actually people that we've coached. And
Yeah.
they just hit a point in their career or their life that they have some time bandwidth now. They want to do that like I did. They want to give
Yeah.
back and help others. Or some have just sold their business and they're, working part-time or full-time for us,
Yeah.
just helping coaching other advisors. So I didn't even know it was a thing. I just kind of stumbled into it, but I just fell in love with helping advisors. I'm all in at this, and I'm just so lucky to find it, but I had
Wow.
no idea to be doing this.
That's great. That's great. It's so rewarding too when you work with other people. I mean, I get a super small taste of it occasionally in this business where actually I just did a speaking engagement here for the Financial Planning Association in Austin, and they asked me to come in and talk about podcasting and producing shows and so forth. And it's so rewarding because all the people who ask you the questions afterwards, and you have all the follow-up, calls about like how they can get started. And it's like, yes, hopefully some business comes out of it, but I do like working with other people and mentoring them along the way, just like you do. So I can absolutely see the appeal. So, and clearly it's working for you. People are going to want to follow up. So XFA.Coach is the website. We'll have that linked up in the show notes. You're active on LinkedIn. What else are you doing? Like, what other stuff are you putting out to the world? How can people follow along?
Hey, even just on social media, want to check out we're LinkedIn, Facebook mostly. I mean, we're on all the mediums, but it seems like most of the advisors are hanging out there. So we've got a lot of content. You can find XFA.Coach, or just me personally, Jon Randall, Jon for John. You can find me. We're always, we're giving all this stuff away.
Yeah.
All the things we coach on, you'll constantly find videos of it. And it's literally the stuff we're helping clients with too. So you can get a taste of it. If there's stuff we can help with that's valuable, hey, we're so glad to make a difference in the industry. We are. We just know when we give away a lot, some people are going to say, hey, I want more. I want some help implementing this idea. I'm not quite sure how to do it. So if you want stuff, we got stuff out there. Check us out on social media, and we would love to share it.
Jon Randall has stuff. I'm going to put that out there. Anyway, that's going to be the title of this episode. You want some stuff? Come get it. All right, buddy. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Great having you.
Thanks so much, Mike. Awesome podcast. Really appreciate being on.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge props to my man, Jon Randall, for coming on this show. Always enjoy talking to him. Love the fact that he shared so many insights and, frankly, just little strategy nuggets there. Obviously, if you want to get the full buffet of strategy nuggets, you got to go talk to Jon and the team at XFA.Coach. They're doing fantastic work, as you can probably surmise from this conversation. All right. That's all I have for you today. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform and be nice to each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. See ya. Bye.